community. There's always that kind of guy out there you never quite see, or woman in this case. So I think, Kathy, it's just a way to think about whatever committees you have going on, whatever reports they do, how we can translate that into information for the community. Because I think it's a huge education opportunity. It rarely happens. You got a brand new big building going. Okay, you tell me a new building, what's going to be different? What's actually going on? Even though we kind of outlined it in the big poster, but that was, this kind of like overview. What's more important is saying, what exactly is going to happen, into that. So now we can talk about more specifics. So I kind of chunked it out in kind of 2-3 month segments, or I think until you get a calendar going, where there's milestones, those will be that. So that's the process. And then the progress is once that's done, that's probably the end of next year. When the final design is done, and you have your contractor, and they're getting into where you actually start seeing things happen. Maybe the site gets cleared up a little bit, whatever it goes on in terms of that, translating that process of what's going on into actually physically what's going on in the site. And then the last thing is actually what I call production, the actual construction itself. And it's a good way for people to learn how new construction is done, how it's going to be fire safe. So things that are and I think all this creates a tone that you're more than willing to share a process of a big investment in a building that's going up. And it conveys more than a building, it conveys, the environment, the school environment, and it gets people more engaged. And therefore, I think it'll help the teachers, the students, the parents, and the community understand the benefits of why this new building is going to really function the way it's meant to do. So it's taking the idea of the schematics and getting into specifics. And so I kind of broke out some dates. But the other thing I'm always more concerned is that you have a lot of different groups, people who are elected, political people, actual people that are being hired. And so the internal communication system, and I know a lot of this is going through the town manager's office, and I couldn't think of anyone better than Kat, who's like super organized. That whatever is flowing, we need to get information that comes, what the town council needs to present, what the Board of Ed would like to report. So everyone's always up to snuff. So it isn't like some issue is going up. You want to be kind of proactive. You want to actually talk about it before someone says, well, what's going on over there? And so by being that way, each of the elected ones, and of course the building committee is the one where everything's going to funnel through anyway. And so, with you guys doing a great job, I don't think that'll be difficult, but, and that's where we kind of fall in, helping the building committee. We don't want being dumped on with everything and taking all that, editing it and saying what's the, what is important stuff, what is secondary, what can go on a website. See, this is a case of a website where you get into minutia. You want to learn more? Here, go to the site. You want to see how many bricks, you want to see how many windows, you want to see urinals, fine, here, go here. Kind of look at it. Then the town plan and zoning, depending what role they're going to have, I'm sure they have to approve a lot of the things. And sometimes there's sort of confusion might be, Meg. You might think about what's the difference between planning and zone and building committee. I think we need a Q&A around that. And saying, okay, what is the role? I thought the building committee is in charge. The plan and zone has to do with the town council to oversee. So I think defining these roles to people on a project like this is very important.
I can do roles.
Huh?
I can do roles. That's something.
Yeah. So whatever that is, so it's clear that each of these groups are actually working in concert and not competing for who's in charge, because this is a collective, collaborative project. Then the state role, the compliance side of this. Most people have no idea the rigidity and the overall control the state of Connecticut has on what a building, what a high school building, or any school building. Hospitals and school buildings are highly regulated buildings in terms of being, in terms of what can be built and not. So we need to explain to people what's the parameters that we have to work with, which always adds to the cost in doing it. That the safety, you know, the fire protection, you know, the security, moving around the space, whatever it's going to be, we need to translate that. We had to do this in Wyndham, is take and explain the 2 pages of state regulations, which is actually not 2, it's just 2 pages of listing of oversee. And this is a rebuild is new. It's not even a new building, because they have different regulations for that. And so also with COVID and security, we need to probably talk a little bit more about that, because that people are kind of antsy about what's going to be going on. So those regulations and what you're doing about it, again, all this will be organized, and I think we just kind of spoon feed it. If we kind of dump this on everybody, it's overwhelming. So if we kind of think of the communication system, other than your meetings and minutes and stuff like that, we have to take that and say, okay, what's officially should go out to the community at large, how much they need to know, and then the detailed stuff would go to the website. So that's kind of what we're doing. And then the contractors, you know, I think it's not bad to talk about them in the beginning, who they are, their experience, their resumes, stuff like that, why they got hired. It's probably a good time now to revisit that, even though you did this with the architect and the builder's rep for you guys. It doesn't hurt to go back and say, here's the team we hired. And talk about also, I found from my experience, is talk about subcontractors and specialists that are under subcontractors that might come in for a particular thing. It isn't going into detail now. It's just saying the hundreds of people that are involved in a building like this. It's really important to convey that, you know, people understand that, you know, the amount of overview, the oversight between all the groups and keeping it forward. So this is a great education for a community, as much as anything else. So they understand the value of the time commitment, the investment, and at the end of the day, they're getting what they paid for. And so that's kind of how we're looking at this. And then I kind of wrote down here the newsletters. I think we should, at least in the beginning, maybe just do 2. And when we're ready, when you hire the contractors, kind of go out a little bit more, lay the groundwork for that. And then in the spring, whatever progress we have in terms of the programming. Kathy, do you know when the programming of the spaces will be done? What's going to actually they want to have in there and the space requirements, or is that going to be way down the road yet?
I'm not sure. I think that we're engaged in it right now with our department leaders. We have a meeting coming up. So I think, you know, we're getting into that whole part of it.
Yeah,
right
so
now.
if there was some schedule for that, we don't have to talk about the design, because the architect's not going to have a design for probably next summer, I assume. But talking about these spaces that actually are given to the architect, which they have to design for.
Right.
So it isn't the architect coming up with the design, it's a
No,
program.
they're engaging our department leaders and
And so you have the state requirements with you know, how wide a hall is, the exits, you know, so that's one side of it. The other side is the actual function inside. And then, you know, then we get into all the other details that we can do. So I know it sounds like, you know, why are we doing all this? So I'm telling you in the long run, it's going to be
right, keeping everyone in the loop. Yeah.
Then the website update, I started having a quick conversation with Kat today about, I know you have that sign out there, and Kat and I going back and forth. I have kind of a billboard mentality. They used to have in the state of Connecticut, here's a construction project partly funded, and they have a photograph, and here it is, the funding. I don't know, I haven't seen those, or I haven't seen a project recently. I have seen it at the hospital where they have that sign that's kind of like designed to go up there. So it looks like, here's the site, here's what's going on. So it's kind of almost like a permanent, it's not a billboard, it's just a large sign that you
Orders
Oh,
yeah, all our
yeah.
orders is doing all their work, and around the site, you'll see kind of the future vision and who's
Right.
working on it, like that.
Then you have, I think that electronic sign, which I think is a great idea, that if people want to get updates, there's I'm thinking of maybe creating a new URL, which I know kind of love, which is like, you know, FHS project. And so if they want to get updates, that would kind of broadcast and using the electronic sign out there, circulating, I don't know, several times an hour, where people drive by, they say, because they can easily remember that. And if they want to just get updates and see what's going on, having that available. It's just something to think about. You just want to visually remind people that the project's going on, there's progress, and how can we use signage The other thing that I saw in this old house, which really, they said they got the best response to, is putting video cameras out when the actual construction's going on. So people can tune in and go to the website and see what's going on. Using the media, it's a perfect YouTube thing to generate interest. And I looked into, when I did some inquiry to this old house, they said, people love that video. They can go anytime. And sometimes it's every minute, so it isn't running all the time, but it's so easy to do today because there's unlimited space. And using YouTube, they don't even limit it, that you can record this process. At certain times, I mean, the weekend you would shut it down, whatever the case might be, but so people go, oh, look at that, they're putting this beam up. It's good for young families to see, wow, look at this. This is really being built. It takes on that kind of, Legos. I'm thinking of kind of Legos mentality, which people love, kind of Legos. So that's one way to think about it. And so the website, in a sense, can be it's always real time. You have core information, real time passing on. Because newsletters aren't going to go out every week, and not everyone's going to listen to the meetings here. So it's a way of doing that. And then the Zoom meetings, I went back and looked at and analyzed when we did that heavy Zoom meetings in April. I don't expect you to do that, it'll just kind of wore you guys out. But I think a couple of those a year where people can interact, or you can go into more detail. So take one of your meetings you're doing or a special meeting. And again, go to those interest groups. It wouldn't hurt. Then presentation materials, it's, that you send something out or they can download as a PDF on the website where PTOs can say, what's going on with that? So they can talk about it. So we can upgrade, you can always update kind of this template. Well, here's where we are right now. So someone can talk about it any way they want. And then, I don't know about the community TV, how you want to handle that. I don't know if there's any programs, right? I don't remember how much we did with that. Devin, did we do much with this community TV or do you remember?
We didn't, no.
Okay.
I think they were closed down for a lot of the pandemic, but they are open
Okay.
to some degree now.
We should just look and see if they're going to be active, and it doesn't hurt to look
Yeah,
at that.
and because we were streaming all of our meetings over Zoom, we kind of had the recording from that anyway, so it was a duplicated effort, so to speak.
I mean, but they would do
Oh, yeah.
a special, like if you
Oh,
interviewed
sure, yeah.
architect or,
Yeah.
that takes resources. So
Yeah. No,
They would
definitely
love
do
that.
Or
Looking
even
for
when
ideas.
if we have these Zoom meetings and have like a hybrid approach or something, they could come and stream it for us, and
Yeah.
there's different ways to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last thing you want to hear from residents, you're not presenting enough. We want to not saturate it,
Yeah.
but where you're not going to get that nonsense from people saying, what do you mean? You're keeping up to date, everything that's going on. So you don't run into this, like, you took my money and ran. So I've run into communities, like, that's what, I don't think you have a community like that. So it doesn't hurt to even do a little bit more than people expect. And that's where you get that buy-in. Of course, I talked about the sign, we can still work that through a little bit. And again, the coordinating of the material. So right now, I just brought in here, Kathy asked us to do kind of update, the board, and I hope you just keep doing that. Because again, there should be a section in the town newsletter. This one is not the newest one, it's the previous one. Some section on here, I put a photograph or whatever we can with a short story, and then have the links. And kind of like a coming up kind of thing. So there's a little calendar in it, short little up to, maybe a note from Meg. And so these newsletters, because I know you do twice a year the newsletter, right, Kath? You're planning just 2 a year. And the town does 4. So the town was voted the #1 communication piece from the survey, way above everything else. Now the audience is a little older. It doesn't mean you shouldn't think of social media or the website, but people still like getting paper in the mail, and doesn't hurt to just keep, that's what they said. Let's listen to them, to do that. And then I think once a year we do, what I call the lawn sign approach, which is kind of here's everything that happens, kind of a highlight for the year, send it out again, nice pictures, and they're, keep it with the other guy, so it keeps that kind of visual. So I'm kind of looking at the one we do for the building committee. It's a very visual presentation, with updates to copy, but as we keep updating, information, we only need summary reports in this one. So 2 a year is probably what you need, and that would probably be fine. So that's kind of the overview. I mean, you see any modification or things we should change with this, or any questions? I think this is all manageable if everyone does their role, so no one gets, kind of doing, to me, this is that, you guys are in a really good position right now to kind of control the messaging really very well.
So for the fall, winter, it says 2021-22. What month are you anticipating to put the newsletter out?
Well, I think once you get a construction manager, now we talk about the process. What are the next steps?
Okay.
So they should go out, I would recommend before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
It's after that to the holidays. And then, so you call it fall, winter. And then we kind of do a spring, summer, which is later when there's much more stuff to show.
Mhm.
And then I think you decide when you think you're going to need a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, we had thought about potentially scheduling the Zoom meeting so that we can announce it in the newsletter, so we won't have to send additional communication pieces. So say we send something out in November, maybe we have something scheduled for December or probably January, like, so that we can use the newsletter as a way to advertise for the Zoom meeting also.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
And I think the other thing would be good to add, Kathy, like, if you have certain people are steering these individual committees, it'd be good to get quotes or information from them. Maybe, I mean, it's always from you, but hearing from the teachers and the department heads,
Sure.
how to work with the architect is really great stuff. And in some cases, if it's really good, you might want to have a presentation. Then we can record it and post it up on the website. So people see, how the thought process went into this. Again, I kind of see this as an educational experience as much as here's the latest stuff going on. So these kind of parallel paths will just enrich the whole, the whole idea.
I don't know if you guys remember, but I think there were a few companies or SAM companies that actually talked about putting the signage up. Yes, I agree. So I'm not sure if that's, I know we're gonna be interviewing the SAM next week, but is that something we can ask if they're including that in the package? Yeah, throwing that out there. The construction, she's talking about, you can see the big packet of our 10 possible construction managers that we're interviewing. And they talked, I know exactly, they talked about some of the services. They actually even had some resources in there specific to communications, a couple of them as well.
Whoever you
So,
select, we can work with them.
right,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
Let them pay for it.
Oh, we pay for it ultimately.
But it looks like it's
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
No, I mean, no,
But-
I've seen a lot of construction signs.
Yeah.
And the issue is, I look at this communication, okay, it's nice to put the companies and everything up like that, but anything where people can just get some information. And that's why that
Catches their
electronic
eye
sign.
or
Yeah, it is.
attention,
It's
yeah.
fine. It's nothing wrong listing the architect.
Yeah.
All that stuff normally goes on construction sites. Now, what is the actual plan for like putting a fence up and doing that stuff? Is there any scheduling? Or is that just too premature?
Well, I mean, we've got 10 versions.
Right.
I mean, they're not all that crazy, I mean, but like, I don't know what that timing
Mark,
is. for the
so
act-
We have, if we're going into 12 months or in the midst of 12 months of design, right? So figure August of next year, we've got a 4-month window in there for what we're calling sort of phase 1 from the architect's perspective. Again, when we work with the CMs, it may be a little different, but the idea is really to look at potentially putting a fence up, putting the berm along the that's called out, and plant some of those plantings to sort of establish a screening right off the bat, and then put the construction fence up. As Meg said, there are 10 site logistic options that different CMs are proposing in their RFQ for whether they take this section for parking and logistics and access and all of those things. So once we select the CM, we'll have plenty of time to identify what that's going to look like and identify a true logistics and phasing plan that works both for, it works for Board of Ed and the day-to-day, the students and the families, works for the neighbors and works for, you know, the town as well, right? Because you've got Monteith coming through, so you've got a lot more than just school traffic happening in that one Monteith Drive. So there's a lot to consider.
Is
It's a
the,
long-winded answer to say next fall.
so is it still the ground breaking for late summer, early fall, next spring, next year? Is that still the goal?
Yes.
Or is
that's
that
still-
in
that's still the
concrete, or
goal.
is it
Yeah,
still, it's a work in progress still?
there
Or
is-
is that actually the goal that you want to have? Is the count ground breaking?
Yeah, the goal is summer, next summer.
Next summer.
Whether that happens in July or August, we're a little premature for that, but it's next summer.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
I'm
may do
thinking-
an early release package for site. That's. one
Well,
thing.
I'm thinking just for communication, maybe engagement is actually do it more around Labor Day when everyone's back. So it doesn't look like a summer. Summer's about the weakest time to communicate any activity. I mean, if it has to be done, and that's the scheduling, I'm gonna do it, but if, if it's
Well,
possible to do, like when school's opening, it is the greatest time to get the publicity versus on August where everyone's still, they're at the beach getting a tan in their mind anyway. So I'm just thinking if that's the way it is, but I mean, obviously you have to schedule practically the way it's gonna be.
Right.
But ideally for communication purposes, having, the governor, the mayor, I mean, getting everyone out there on a groundbreaking is a great PR opportunity, and we have to use it. And the fence can go up after, or we can do one, or you can actually have the fence up going and have some like official
could do a lot.
groundbreaking. Yeah, so
That's what I
you
was gonna
keep the
say.
project going, but actually have an official groundbreaking.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and
A
we do.
little right after Labor Day.
Pile of dirt and some shovels is happening.
Yeah, so we get
Site
all-
work is gonna be, it's not like buildings are coming down, it's not like, some things are gonna have continue to happen, and so you could do your groundbreaking well after you've set up the fence and constructing trailers and all those things that are happening, because
Mark, is
there'll be
the
a lot of
architect,
that, lot of site work and concrete work. There'll be a while before you're out of the ground,
oh, yeah. No,
and that's my view.
I'm gonna bring the candle. Is the architect gonna build a model
They have one actually, it's
when
not,
it's final design stuff?
I don't think that's part of their,
So it's not part of it.
not part of the scope to build a final model. They have a block model, right? So where they're moving parts and pieces around. But I don't think there'd actually be a physical model that they're gonna build.
Well,
There'll be a lot of
I
3D,
assume
there'll be a lot
have a lot
of
of
3D
renderings.
a lot of 3D renderings and things like that.
That might be a way that we can visually turn that into a 3D
Sure.
presentation. There's gotta be some visual thing that people need to see.
Didn't one of the CM firms have something that was
Some of them already
Like-
did it, right? So,
video tour and
Yeah.
walkthrough and
yeah,
did
there's a lot of,
visualization?
yeah, a lot
They
of
did the
technology.
Oculus.
Yeah.
The one,
There's
virtual
a
reality, where you
3D
virtually,
modeling
yeah,
program
the
that a lot of
VR.
them use
Yeah,
now.
there's some
They
3D
collaborate with the
stuff. you
architect.
can do
Yeah,
now.
okay.
And
So we'll
You can
have,
take individual shots. you can
that's,
sweep it
Well, when
around.
you
Yeah.
can see about them and everything.
Set up some VM.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, if you can let us know or talk to the architect about when we have, it was kind of, I mean, obviously the design's not done yet,
Right.
but where we can start having those kind of things. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just checking time, because we still have to do that quick item 6:15, just to give us a little bit of time. Any kind of, I know this is a work in progress, I already know, this is kind of a higher level overview. A lot of components we've seen, which worked well for us, pre-referendum, we're kind of moving forward, which is great, I think. So any other thoughts or questions right now for Ira, this will be kind of our guiding plan as we move forward,
Thank you.
make sense? Yeah. Thank you very much. All right, so the one other item we have under new business is to cancel the September 22nd, 2021 communication subcommittee meeting. So I think this is our discussion on the fact of having one.
Yes, we're moving, you'll see on our next meeting's agenda, as in the full committee, we're changing the time of that meeting to 4 p.m. So it just doesn't make sense for our committee to also meet. So that's gonna be a long day.
So I want to start with 2.
Yeah.
So this is in conflict with our interview meeting and all that stuff, so. All right, so could I get a motion to cancel the September 22nd, 2021 communication subcommittee meeting? Motion to cancel?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, unanimously approved. Awesome. And then our very last item is adjournment. So if there is nothing else, I think we're in good shape now, right? Everybody's good? All right, so motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second?
discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So we will adjourn at 6:17 this evening.